Welcome back to What's Going On. I'm your host, Nico. Let's get right back into it.
Welcome to What's Going On. I'm Jordan Davis.
And I'm Bernares, and we're your hosts for today's episode.
Here on What's Going On is where we come together and we discuss issues that are most important to us teens.
Today's episode is going to most definitely be one for the books.
Topic! She's black and she's the only woman in Louisiana to have the keys to prison. Sheriff Susan Hudson.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm ABCT team welcome to Sheriff Susan Hudson.
Yeah! Now I want to start with the first question. How does it feel being the first woman, scratch that, the first black woman in Louisiana to be sheriff?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, you think about times you go into spaces where there's not a lot of us in there. Well, there are 64 sheriffs. There are only 5 who are African American, so another 4 males, right? Black males, but otherwise I'm the only woman there. And of course, the only black woman there. So I feel like I'm holding space like I should. You got to come in and be ready to do that. So it feels good. It feels good to break down a door that was closed to us, and it's wide open now for anybody else to come through. So it feels good.
Now I'm going to open the floor for questions.
How do you feel about the crime in New Orleans?
I live in Gentilly, near the old St. Bernard, and I feel safe. I walk all hours of the day and night with my dog. I feel pretty safe, but we've seen a number of incidents that have really sparked fear in our community, and I think sometimes the government will overreact to those things instead of just doing the things we need to do to keep us safe all the time. So I think there's been a little bit of an overreaction to it, but I feel, by and large, I do feel safe.
Sheriff, your job is a real impactful job. You do a lot during the day, working hard. Now, as a black woman in today's society, how do you think you can change the world as being the sheriff? How can you inspire people that look like us?
Hey man, I'm the first black woman to ever sit in this seat in this state. And I've done a little research about it. There are only 7 states in the country that have ever had a black woman as sheriff. So it's important that we be in spaces. But when we come into spaces, sometimes we get different treatment than others get. And so I'm always aware of that. But know this, you have to be in these spaces to make the change that you want to see. And that's why I ran for sheriff. And we can talk about the things I've promised to do and that I'm working on doing right now. I didn't get into this job to lock people up. It's part of the job, but the most important job is what do I do with folks who are in my custody and how do I treat them?
Going back to what you just said, what do you do with people who are in your custody?
Once they get into my custody, it's my job to do what? Keep them safe. Keep them safe and secure, to make sure that they get to court. We secure the court so that justice can be done. We make sure that they can get to their lawyers. When they stay with us, they have medical and mental health treatment that we have to provide them. And then my job, I feel like, is to give them an alternative to what they've been doing in the past. And so one of the things you have to do is you gotta talk to them. You gotta find out how did they get here? What caused them to come into this situation in the first place? And what can I do to help them so that doesn't repeat itself? I don't know if you wanted me to keep going. I want to talk to you about what we find out about people.
Do we have any questions about it?
I know you said that you didn't run so that you could just lock people up, so why did you run?
I ran to make a big change. My brother came back from the Navy, PTSD. And eventually he was diagnosed as schizophrenic. And the whole time, and I have a large family, and the whole time we were trying to care for him, there were very few resources in the community to do that. Whatever resources you have depend on what community you live in. So when we lived in Texas, there were very few. When we lived in California, there were a lot. And he's still in California because that's where the most resources are for us to be able to take care of him. But at one point he disappeared. I didn't know where he was. He was homeless. At one point I didn't know if the police were interacting with him. And when we tried to get help for him in Texas, do you know who came out to help? The police. It wasn't mental health care, it was police. The sheriff's department, in fact, came to get him and help us get him to treatment. And I said to myself, that's not what I want. You know, we want mental health technicians and folks like that, and they have that in other states. So we want somebody besides the police to take care of something that is not a police matter. Mental health is not a police matter. So that's what got me to run, because I wanted to, you have to sit in this seat to change the way we do business. I could be like, let's lock them all up. I'm not doing that. Our jail is already too full right now, and because of what the legislature has done, I'm trying to get folks out of there who don't belong in there. And the only people I think belong in there, and you can disagree with me, but the only people I believe belong in there are those who commit violent acts. But I have people in there for blocking sidewalks or littering or, yeah. That's the type of thing we don't need.
Yeah, we have a question here, then we're gonna go to him.
How do you feel when you see someone who doesn't belong there and like they literally like can't get out? Like they've been to many trials already and they've gone so many times and they still can't get out.
Great question. On average, the people who are in my custody have been arrested between 8 and 9 times in their lives. We have an 83% return rate. Once people are released, they come right back. And what we found out is we started looking at why is this going on. So I went to one pod, we call it a pod, and that has 60 people in it. 60 men in one location. That's a lot, right? So there's no privacy, no place for you to have a quiet thoughts. This is what, and I didn't build the jail, but this is what I have. Went to these 60 men and I asked them questions. What is going on with you? How did you get here? And they told me a lot. We asked them, if when you leave here, will you have a place to stay? How many of those 60 people do you think said they had a place to stay? None. Not one of them did. When I asked them, how many of you have a trade or a skill that you can work on when you leave here? How many of you said, it was basically very little. We asked how many of you have family to support you? Very little. And we asked about education. 60% of them had below a 12th grade education. And some had 5th and 6th grade was the last grade they actually went to. So over those who had 12th grade or above was around 33%. So when I know better, then I can do something about that. So we have HISET courses for folks. We have Travis Hill School for those who are 17 now or in my custody. I know you want to talk to me about the 17-year-olds being in there. We have a school also for those who are adults up to I think 21 can go to school as well there. So I'm trying to make sure they have those resources that they need to not come back.
We have a question again.
What do you expect us to get from this interview?
Well, I hope you can understand that it's a huge problem, right? And it's not a problem that I control myself. There are certain things I control, which is what do I do with the folks in my custody, but I don't control who comes in. The legislature can decide we're going to arrest everybody wearing red one day, right? They decided recently 17-year-olds are now adults and they are in my custody. So I now have to take care of these, what I think are still children, in this adult setting. So I want you to know I don't control that, and then I don't control when people leave. I have very little control over that. Now what we do, you talked about if we have somebody in here and they just can't get out. They just cannot afford to get out. That happens a lot. So I keep statistics and I put that information to the courts, to the district attorney, to the public defender. These people are just here because they cannot afford to get out. It could be as little as $5,000 bail, so that's like $500 they got to put down. It could be $10,000, it could be $20,000. And that could be the difference between them being free and keeping their jobs or losing their jobs and staying here with me. Because to get to trial could be up to 2 years.
I have a question about your home life. Like, how does your role affect your home life?
It's busy. We're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, we have to feed people, house people, keep them safe. Anything can kick off at any hour of the day and night. So I'm on duty all the time. In fact, the sheriff, it may be interesting, it may not be. I actually don't have any leave. Like, I don't have sick leave or vacation leave because I'm the sheriff at all times. There's no leave. You're just on duty all the time. So, you know, that's the job I took on. I took it on because this is the work of my heart.
I kind of want to go back to when you said the return rate is 83%.
Yes.
Do you think that's that high because people don't feel safe outside of the jail? They feel safer in jail or in prison?
That's a great question, and sometimes they do. In fact, sometimes we'll let people out. They don't want to go. They'll fight with us or attack one of the deputies or break a window or do something, so we'll bring them back in. And that has a lot to do with the mental health care, a lot to do with that. But it also has a lot to do with people not having a home.
How does it make you feel like seeing young teens come into the prison? Into the jail?
Oh, it's absolutely gut-wrenching. I look at you. I look at all of you. These beautiful, bright young folks. You're our future. And they're sitting with me right now. We know that if you engage in this system, if you're a part of it, it makes it more difficult for you to get housing. It makes it more difficult for you to get professional licenses. That's the law. It makes it more difficult for you to get away from that past. It makes it more difficult for you to have a career doing anything you want to do. So when I see these young faces like you, and I just want to hug them and do something else for them, but I've got them in lockup. It's tough.
When you said that it's the law about getting a professional license, do you feel like that's a fair thing, that people can't get a professional license after they've been in jail or have anything on their record?
I don't think it is fair. I don't think it's fair at all. I want you to contrast former President Donald Trump being able to run for president of the United States, the most powerful position in the world, and he is a convicted felon. But if you are a convicted felon in the state of Louisiana, I think there are 1,500 to 1,600 licenses you can't get. Yeah, because you have this felony conviction, and it's designed that way. That's why I ended up getting into this system. And I don't know if I can share a little bit about that. I'm a lawyer by trade. I went to Tulane Law School not far from here. And I came out and I was a defense attorney first. And I looked at how unfair the system was to us. I became a prosecutor later. I got to see it from that side. And again, unfair. But I was low in the pecking order. I could make very little change then. So I started doing something else. I started monitoring the police. And I did that for 17 years. In Austin, Texas, LAPD in California, and at the New Orleans Police Department, trying to make change and fundamentally change this system in ways. But I wasn't in control of the systems. That's why I ended up running for sheriff.
Let's pause for commercial break. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You support ABCT program because you like what we're doing over here. And as you can see, we want to keep this thing going. They're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. ABCT. Right? ABCT. ABCT.
Welcome back to What's Going On. I'm your host, Nico. Let's get right back into it.
Welcome back to What's Going On. We're here with Sheriff Susan Hudson.
I'm sure there are some teens out there watching this that strive to be like you. Can you give advice or explain your journey to this position?
Yeah, thank you. This is the question I love to talk about because it's about my faith. And I believe that, my steps are ordered by my Creator. And how I got here is it's not something that would normally happen. But God started moving me into these positions as a defense attorney, as a prosecutor, monitoring the police. And then one day I found out, and I didn't know this, that my grandfather, my father's father, was murdered by a sheriff in rural East Texas during the Jim Crow era. I didn't even know that. And just put that in my path way late in my life. I was 50 years old before I knew that. And so then it just started moving, God started moving me in this direction to where I had gotten to the end of what I didn't want to do that work anymore. I wanted to do something more impactful. I want to make the change that I really want to see. This opportunity popped up right around that time. That's how I ended up as sheriff, because I talk to this community about the change that we want to see. Great question.
Are there any programs that teens can do that'll keep them out the streets from committing crimes?
Yeah. Well, I've seen that our city has to really step up there. So you've got to have the resources all around. Government's got to do their part. Like I saw that the city council and the mayor approved $50 a week for teenagers to make sure they have some money in their pockets. So, you know, they're not going out to break into cars or doing whatever to try and get funding. Sometimes what we find out from these youngsters when they come in is that they may be the ones who are making sure that their younger brothers and sisters eat in a day. And we know that incarceration, when those kids come in, usually their parents have been in as well. So that causes all kinds of issues in the family, economic issues that leads to these crimes. So that's a big start, making sure that kids have the education that you need to get where you want to get in life. I talked to you about that pod where the people had fallen out of school before graduating. It makes it very difficult for them to get where they want to get. We've got to really embrace our schools, pay our teachers right, all right, and treat our teachers right. And then faith has to be a big part of that. We're doing programs right now with our churches so that when people leave, they can get to a church home, right? So you got this church family. We hope to get you back to your family eventually. Sometimes that's difficult when people have been in jail. But start with your faith, right? Which makes you do better. And then have this church home who can help you get to a better place. That's what we're working on right now.
What's the worst crime that you've seen a teen commit that's come into the jail?
Of the first 20 or so 17-year-olds that came into the jail, probably 16 to 17 of them were there for either first or second degree murder. Yeah. And that's gut-wrenching because they look like you. They look like you. They look like babies. And, you know, they are alleged to have taken somebody's life.
How do you feel when you see like that they've come in for murder?
I don't look at them that way when they're in my custody. I don't ask why they're there. I don't ask that. I know they're here for something, but that's not my job. They're going to face justice. They'll face a jury, a judge. But my job is to do what I can do for them while I have them there. So I rarely ask that. I always just want to know, what do you need?
What's the youngest age that you've seen come to you?
17 is the youngest we've had so far. Now we know that the DA can certify younger folks as adults. So far, if that is happening, they're staying at the Juvenile Justice Intervention Center, which is kind of the juvenile jail. So they stay there. But you know, so far just 17-year-olds, but that's because, I'm sure in part because we're so full right now. We have more people in custody. There are more initiatives to put police on the street, interact with people, which are going to cause more to come to the jail, along with the 17-year-olds.
Sheriff, we know that you get paid when people does go into prison. Do you want us to be locked up? Because if we wasn't locked up, then you wouldn't get paid.
Well, that's true. That's true. But this community, it is a great question. This community voted long ago to stop paying the sheriff per person. So I don't get paid per person. The city does have to pay for all my costs, though. So what I've discovered is it takes around almost $50,000 a year to house somebody in a jail for a year. $50,000. What if we spent even half of that on education, housing, job skills outside the jail? That would be phenomenal. So I don't have the same incentive to have more people in as I did before. And right now, I'm telling you, I'm committed that only the only people who should be in my custody are those who have committed violent acts. Everybody else I'm trying to get out. And we actively pursue getting them out. We look at bail fund places and for those who just can't afford to get out. We ask judges to take a second look at people and see if they can get out. And most importantly, I'm trying to give reentry plans. Anybody know what that is? That's where we assess what's going on with them. It could be medical, it could be mental health, it could be addiction, it could be trauma. We assess what's going on with them, and then we have a plan for them to leave and a safe space for them to go. If I know you're homeless, I got to get you to a home, right? If I know you have an addiction, I need to get you to treatment. In fact, the first 17-year-old who came into our custody was here for breaking into a car to have a place to sleep because he had an addiction and he didn't have a place to go. When he left us, we sent him over to Odyssey House so that he could have a bed to sleep in and treatment for his addiction.
On a lighter note, I would like to know, is there a moment or several moments that have stuck with you that have been good? Or are there any good moments that have stuck with you about your job?
Yeah, because there are a lot of good parts of being the sheriff, so thank you for asking that. One of the things we do is support community. So you might find it kind of strange, but the sheriff has tents. We put out tents for community events. So if your church or a community group has something going on, we'll put out these tents. You know, it'll be hot as can be out here some summers, and that is good shade. So Gentilly Fest or New Orleans East Festival, any festivals you're doing, we're gonna support that. So we want our community to be able to have a safe space. I also provide deputies, like Deputy Burris, to be there, keep things safe, right? We had an Easter egg hunt, we had deputies so families can feel safe coming out there. We support other events that way as well. And our job is just to what? Keep the peace. We're not trying to patrol or do anything like that. We want our community to have a good time. So we try to support our community. By the way, if you have an event, we also cook. We have red beans and rice, chicken, different things. We have a whole kitchen. So we can provide that for our community to have a good time.
Okay, well, we have a special guest, everybody. Let's give a warm welcome to Deputy Burris.
May you explain what do you do as a deputy?
I'm a sheriff deputy at the Orleans Parish Sheriff Office. I've been there for the past 16 years. I'm the executive protection for Sheriff Susan Hudson. I've been in this acting role for the last 2 months, working Orleans Parish Civil Side Division, Service and Processing.
Okay. Any questions?
Being a deputy, how does seeing children today impact your mental health? Are you a mother?
Yes.
Do you ever say, oh wow, that could have been my child? Do you ever wonder, how do you try to impact that into your children and say, look, do the right thing?
Faith-based. I'm faith-based. I'm big prayer. I cover them every day, morning, noon, night. I pray over them that I only can expect and hope and pray for the best, asking God to walk with them every step of the way, that it could be him. It could be anybody's child. We're not exempt just because we work back there. I mean, it can happen to the least of us. It can happen to the best of us. But it's life. And we don't want to accept the choices of life. You can talk wisdom into them. You can instill into them. Some people just have y'all age group sometimes could pick the wrong friendship, the wrong crowd. People speaking into your ears could be a problem too. So in the midst of all that's going on, I speak positive. I speak affirmative action over them. I keep praying nonstop, asking God to cover him throughout his walk of life.
Being a black woman in such an important role that you've only been in, I think you said, for 2 months. Have you ever so far gotten any hate for anything just because of the fact that you're a black woman?
I mean, glad you say that, because first and foremost, to be in this role and being a black woman, 1 in a million. A lot of us would have never got the opportunity. First and foremost, you thank God up above. Secondly, to Sheriff Susan Hudson for giving us the opportunity as the women to step on a large platform as we have stepped up to. With these last 2 years, we have seen a lot of changes with our sheriff being a sheriff for 2 years. For women as my color, we have never been an executive protection in the sheriff office. So I really want to say thank her for that opportunity. I mean, we do a lot of things around the department besides just executive protection. We deputies, we moved up in ranks, sergeants, lieutenant, captains, and so on and so above. We play administrative role. We actually on the street, we're doing servicing, processing, things we haven't was able to do with the previous administrative staff. We're actually doing it now. And our voices are being heard more often.
Would you like to add on that?
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, by the way, is 60% women and 40% men. You're not going to see that at most law enforcement agencies, and mostly black women, so they look just like me. But the thing you always have to remember is that the most important and impactful work is done by our deputies. You know, I have to treat them well, meet their needs so that they can meet the needs of those in our custody and keep them safe. So I'm always cognizant about that. And when I ran for sheriff, I promised not only would I take care of those in our custody, but those who work for us.
Really appreciate you guys for providing us information on today's topic. Thank you.
Yes, it is our hope that the conversations we're having and the topics we're discussing will help some teens somewhere, somehow today. Now, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Keep your head up! Woo! Yes.
What if it's too hard?
I'm gonna push through!
What if it's too rough?
I'm gonna push through!
What if it's too tough?
I'm gonna push through!
What if you're just too young?
That's not true!
What if you're not good enough?
That's not true!
Why? Because
I can do anything I put my mind to!
I believe in you.
Chin up!
Believe in yourself.
Head high!
Tell me why.
We can do anything we put our minds to!
Who are you?
ABCT! ABCT! ABCT!
That was fantastic.
You support ABCT program because you like what we're doing over here. And as you can see, we want to keep this thing going. They're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. ABCT. Right?
ABCT! ABCT!
ABCT Performing Arts Summer Program is more than a camp. It's culture. A 6-week summer performing arts camp for kids ages 7 to 17 that will teach your child about theater, acting, and TV production. Get your kid involved with the award-winning Anthony Bean Community Theater this summer. Camp begins June 6th through July 15th. For enrollment information, call 862-PLAY. That's 862-7529 or go to anthonybeantheater.com.